getting ready to record on this computer. We're recording on this computer. This is the nonprofit chat on the 28th of February, the last day of February in 2017. It's not a leap year. So you're competing with the president tonight. Oops. See your picture coming up. So what happens, Ryan, is I want to interview you about collaborative, building collaborations, building collaborative networks, and how you've built the collaboration there in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we are streaming live on Facebook, and I'm not going to get diverted. Russell's monitoring that, and we will see what's going on there. We're recording this, and it will go up on our YouTube page as our series of Hugh Blue and Todd Greer interviewing thought leaders on their areas of expertise and sharing with nonprofit leaders around the globe. Usually we have a few people that are live with us, but as Russ and I were talking, there's several hundred that will view this in retrospect. So yes. There's somebody pushing their bright lights behind you. How far are you from home?
Well, I'm actually headed to my 8 o'clock. I was trying to be landed by 7, but got delayed. But I'm close enough. I can pull over somewhere and we can go to work.
Go to work. All right. So part of what I'd like to do is for you to begin to tell people something about you. Why and we put a little information about Triangle Leadership, Triangle Entrepreneur Leadership, TEL. And you've invited me to be part of the collaboration from the beginning, I guess. And you're growing this out, and it's beginning to have quite some impact. And you're planning for a major conference with major speakers in October, November, sometime in the fall.
Yes, November. November 2nd.
Absolutely great. And so we'll let you talk about that a little bit more later. But right now, I'm going to give you a minute to talk about Ryan Ray. What is your superpower, your secret sauce, your number one favorite passion that drives you in this business world? And then just a little bit about that, and then a little bit about what is this collaboration that you put together called Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership?
All right. Well, thanks, Hugh, for the opportunity to share and present here on the nonprofit chat. I know you've been sharing with me your vision and goal with this group. So collaboration is very important in any space, but particularly, in the nonprofit space. So a little about myself. Again, Ryan Ray from here in Raleigh, North Carolina, from a big metropolis called Dunn, North Carolina. And what drives me is a passion for education and empowerment. I'll maybe share a little more detail of my story later, but the thing that really changed my life was when I began to truly understand the value of education, reading, changing what I feed myself, which affected my programming, affected what I thought, what I believed, how I made moves. And then also my associations. And so my passion, what drives me is creating environments where people can be educated, empowered, but then also have an environment where the associations align with the results that people want to achieve. And so what we've been able to create here in Raleigh, North Carolina is just that. Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership was started actually when we had Brother Hugh coming out to Raleigh, North Carolina. We created a meetup group, and just from the title, Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership, we saw it begin to take off with members. And so we recognized the hunger for entrepreneurship and leadership here in the Triangle, and we just thought it'd be a grand idea to leverage that community and create, again, an environment, a culture where they can come out, be educated, empowered, and equipped with the thinking and the skill sets necessary for success in the marketplace.
So why entrepreneurs?
Why entrepreneurs? Well, for me, the other thing that drives me is freedom. Freedom to truly pursue purpose, and freedom to do the things that I feel like I was put here to do. I recognized somewhere around the age of 25, because of the environment that I was blessed to begin to spend time with, that in order to truly go out there and affect change, really impact the world and impact people, you have to have time. And entrepreneurship grants people that freedom when you leverage it properly, to have time. And so I know the more entrepreneurs that we're able to educate and empower, the more we can go out there and change, because people are able to impact in alignment with their gifts and talents and skill sets.
And I've been in the room for several presentations, and the people you have surrounded yourself are very competent people, and lots of varieties of gifts. And I commend you for attracting really good people in this inner circle that is your leadership team. And I'm pleased to be in that team. I'm in good company. So thank you for inviting me into that good company.
Well, we're honored to have you, Hugh. Appreciate the expertise that you bring.
I've posted a question out there in Twitter, the Twitterverse, and sometimes people comment on them, sometimes they don't. But I'd like to entertain those for this interview. Why is collaboration important? And you have in the mix a lot of businesses, but you also have a lot of charities, nonprofits, we call them.
Right.
And so why specifically, this is a nonprofit chat, and we're talking about good leadership principles. And it's very, very needed for charities. We tend to take the nonprofit word as a philosophy and not a tax classification. So I'm a fan for installing really good business principles. So in this collaborative energy you've created, why is it important?
Well, collaboration is key, because again, just from mentorship, the things that I've learned is that, in cooperation, the great Dr. George Fraser says that in cooperation, 1 + 1 is 2. So you have two people that just kind of agree, they're just kind of headed in the same direction and are able to maybe accomplish some things together. In collaboration, though, you're really on the same page with the agenda of the other person, and you've kind of taken your own needs and wants and put them on the back burner temporarily to truly focus on the one agenda. And so when you bring collaboration together, when you bring two like minds together or more, there's a third mind that's created. There's a synergy that's created, because here, as I've learned in our collaboration, there's just a lot of things that I don't know, and there's a lot of things that I didn't know. There's a lot of things that I thought I knew that was true that I found out wasn't true. And none of those things could have been challenged by my own thinking, because that's what I knew. And so collaboration helps me to get out of the picture, get out of the frame so I can see the picture, or it allows someone else that I'm collaborating with to see the picture for me and say, here are some things that you can tweak or change. The other thing about collaboration, when you talk about entrepreneurs and solely based on business, there was a great book, Michael Gerber, The Entrepreneurial Myth, the E-Myth, and he talks about that. Like, when we come to bring our gift and passion to the marketplace, there's only so many resources we're allocated. By that I mean time, energy, and money. And so there's only so much of that we can expend. And if we're trying to do everything, then the one thing that we're the most gifted at is probably not going to be maximized or optimized. And so collaboration says, how can I align myself strategically with others who bring their gifts and talents to the marketplace? I bring my gifts and talents to the marketplace, and man, we can get so much more done together if we're collaborating than I can on my own.
You ought to be a speaker. Oh, you are a speaker. Oh man, I've heard you. You're wow. I've surrounded myself with smart people. It makes me look smarter, but you're so right. You really don't have to know everything.
No.
You want to know how things work and what the end result is, and be able to lead people with specific expertise that fill in the gaps. I did interview George Fraser on the series a couple of weeks ago.
I remember that.
My Orchestrating Success podcast, and it was quite an amazing interview. And he's coming to your event in November, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. We're
He's gonna
excited
be
to have him.
a headliner. So on this, on the panelists today, we have also with you Mr. Russell David Dennis. He's one of the few people in the world that have 3 first names, and he's a very special friend and a very gifted leader as well. Russ, do you want to weigh in on some of these things on this first question? Why is collaboration important? And certainly you're in that camp because you're right here with us.
Well, collaboration in the nonprofit world for all of the folks that fund grants, it's expected now. You know, there was a point in time when it was unique for people to collaborate on grants, but it's expected. Funders and even some donors want to know how you're going to leverage the money and the resources they entrust to you. And so that's the thing. And it's really important for small organizations because they often have a lot of gaps. So when you get a group of small organizations that collaborate with complementary skills, they can collaborate. Nobody has to work to their weaknesses, but they can all work to their strengths. And so you're stronger together. And I sort of have a philosophy that you can accomplish a whole lot if you're not obsessed with who gets the credit.
You always have these great sound bites. I always have these great sound bites. Do you know Ryan, Brother Ryan?
I do. It's been a long time. It's really good to see you again. It's been a long time. It's remarkable. We haven't had a chance to chat, but
yeah, it's been a little while. Yes, sir. Pleasure to see you out here.
All right. So that's a really good answer. And it has lots of different tangents to it. Russ, are you looking at Facebook?
I am looking at Facebook, yeah.
And you don't see any. If you see any questions, would you relay them to me? Sandy, our inner strength person's not here. She's had a conflict tonight. So I want to move on. There's another question that's launching right now on the Twitterverse. And Ryan, before I go to that, any more you want to say on in response to Russ, what Russ says about collaboration, how it's expected from funders?
Yeah, I mean, that's just 100% true. And, you know, I think that's valuable because the other thing that I think collaboration brings to the table is a certain level of accountability. And if everybody's carrying a bucket, you know, and everybody has to bring their part to the table, I think that collaboration matched with accountability holds everybody responsible. And there again, I mean, imagine when they were building a pyramid and somebody forgot to bring the blocks.
Yeah. What are you going to do with this big old stone?
Right.
So I'm going to ask a question maybe I shouldn't ask, but is this collaborative energy just as important for churches as it is for charities?
I assume directed to me. Absolutely. You know, since you went there, I would say even more so because I think it's required of us. You know, Scripture tells us, forsake not the assembly, and you know, how can 2 walk together except they? I mean, there's just a lot of collaborative principles throughout Scripture, and you know, in the nonprofit world, we're working, you know, kind of here, and in the church, we're focused on eternity. So yeah, I think there's a greater need, if not just as much, definitely. In the church as nonprofit.
I read the writings of Father Richard Rohr. He's a Franciscan, teaches a lot about religious thinking and sometimes busts some of the myths that we've inherited from our religious trainings. One of the quotes that I captured in my little quote pad here is, transformed people transform people.
That's good.
And going back to the writings of St. Paul, when he said, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, or renewal, depending on the translation. We got to start up here with our collaborative energy. I like that. So we tend to minor major and minor things sometimes, when really that God's got a bigger purpose for us. And if we could strengthen our work, if we'd work together, I think it's probably mandatory there as well. So I'm going to go to the second question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define collaboration when we're working with other charities? We say collaboration, and I find when people call and say, hey, I want to collaborate with you, when they're a business person, what they really mean is, I want access to your list, and they know I've got a big list. And so I've got to determine what their interpretation of collaboration is. They want me to send them leads. That's collaboration to them. Well, collaboration to me is, what do we put together that we can create synergy with that works for the good of both of us? Now, in charities, we're not marketing our services. We're trying to provide philanthropic value to people in the world. So in charities, what does collaboration look like to you? How do you define it?
Well, there again, I think in charity, I don't know, sometimes I think the needs can be greater sometimes, because a lot of times someone brings, again, passion. What is that cause that they're passionate about? What is that hurt, that error that they want to correct sometimes? And sometimes there's a lot of skill sets that may be lacking in getting that charity running or nonprofit running efficiently. And so, yes, to your point, I think collaboration is, okay, how do we bring a plethora, a variation of gifts and talents to the table so that synergy, that sixth man is created, so that we now begin to work together. And so again, I think in that nonprofit space, because sometimes it's so service driven that I think the need is greater, and so you need more arms around you. You need more people holding your arms up. You need more access, but at the same time, it has to be a win-win, and that's the other great thing about collaboration. In this society, as you mentioned earlier, sometimes these myths. We feel like, man, in order for me to win, you got to lose, or for me to lose, for you to win, I got to lose. And that's just not true in collaboration. In collaboration, there's win-wins. There might be a short-term sacrifice, but at the end of the day, it's a win-win. Everybody wins because the mission, the goal is achieved.
Well, in doing group process, I always emphasize building consensus, which is the antithesis of compromise. So the consensus is a win-win. In collaboration, we're building a thinking platform of consensus thinking, consensus building, which is, how do we create that third brain from two? How do we create a greater energy field by using our collective intelligence for the common good, rather than, as Russ said, figure out who gets the credit.
Right.
It's really, we want to accomplish things. And I think, and compromise is where everybody gives up something and everybody loses. So that's a lose-lose mentality. And to me, there's the antithesis in this collaboration. And we subscribe to a cooperative capitalism, which is a whole different definition of building a cooperation in business. We get there by building a collaborative energy, which is a whole new level of thinking. And I think it means that we have to give up our fears of loss. We feel like we're going to lose some members. They're going to go over to the other side, or we're going to lose some donations. And I think there's a much bigger, we worry about, we have a slice of the pie, rather than thinking, why don't we make a bigger pie? And what Russ was defining is, there's more money out there if we put our brains together and go after it. So Russ, do you want to weigh in on any of this question that Ryan has started out really well with?
Oh, yeah. Well, he hit it on the head, because he started out by saying that more hands makes the work lighter. So that's pretty important. In collaboration, what it looks like is everybody pitching in to create a unique product for one audience. So usually these nonprofits that collaborate, they have the complementary skills. Together, they're serving the same people, essentially. So they can make up something that'll take advantage of their unique strengths and talents to bring a new and unique program that one of them may have thought about trying, but they can't do on their own. So together they can pool their resources and their talent and actually do it and reach out to more audiences. And collaboration in the nonprofit sphere is really just getting together and creating win-win-win scenarios. And there's three groups that win. There's your staff and all of the people, your internal folks. There are the people that get the services and the people that pay for them. So you get together to create these win-win-win propositions to create new and unique services. And collaborations really is working together. And in the case of nonprofits, it's serving together.
Good.
And I work with a number of nonprofits around the country, and they're doing a lot of different things. What I have seen emerge in the last year and a half is that there's a realization that, oh, there's lots of work to be done. But we don't need to do it all. So we can build, programs and from what other people are offering, and we can provide them an outlet, and revenue usually goes with that outlet. And if we went after a grant as an umbrella, then we could divvy up the pie if we carefully go into this. Now, I want to emphasize that we invite conflict as leaders. We want to eliminate it. We don't eliminate it unless we're running a cemetery. And I don't recommend that right now. We're going to have conflict, which is the sign of energy, wherever you've got people who are thinking and acting out of their passion. Our job is to define the workspace, define the agreement, define the expectations in writing so that we don't walk people right into the conflict window. And so we will have conflict, but that's okay. It's because we have individuals thinking, and it's our job to address that early on. And so part of why we need to define it is we need to define really what collaboration is. And it's how we build a synergy. I think somebody used that word. How do we build the synergy that Covey defines as a result that's greater than the sum of the parts? How do we create a synergy that we all play in? And as Russ said earlier, how do we then not feel like we've got to take the credit for it as long as it gets done?
Right.
I think more than us knowing or thinking we want to have the credit, we just don't want somebody claiming the credit that didn't do it. Back to you, Ryan. Before I move on to question 3, are you have any more you want to weigh in on how we this one really is, how do we create the clarity of the architecture of engagement? How do we create the rules we play by, basically? And I've gone to talking about guiding principles. What are the principles that will guide our decisions? So at being a recovering Scottish Presbyterian where everything is decently in order, we like to define at least how we can, how it's going to work. And my approach to that is creating guiding principles. Do you want to weigh in any more before I go on to the next question?
Yeah, I'll just highlight real briefly. I mean, you brought up, conflict, and one of those skill sets. Somebody you as part of those collaborations. It'd be good to have somebody on your team who can resolve conflict. And so when that raises its head, like you said, I think it's a sign of progress, because if you leave a meeting and it didn't get a little rowdy, you probably didn't touch any sensitive issues. And so then guess what happens? Now all the cliques leave the meeting and have all of these side conversations. And I think that's the thing, going back to church or nonprofits, because it's, we're myth by myth. We think, okay, if it was peaceful and everybody just everything was just pretty and great. But so many times agendas leave unsolved, untouched, because we're afraid to touch those issues that if we touch them, we could get further down the road. It's like the married couple that said, everything was fine until we went to counseling. Well, probably because you hadn't had any hard conversations. And so when you have those hard conversations, a lot comes out. And if you hang in there and go through the process, man, it gets better.
Whoa. It does. And part of personal growth, part of transformation is that process that we go through. And there's pushback when people don't want change. So sometimes the pushback is because people are not comfortable with where we're going, but they don't know that until we go there.
You are right. It's uncomfortable. However, it's really not comfortable.
No. Did I give you my Reinhold Niebuhr quote? Comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
There you go.
That's a well-known it's a well-known theologian who has these quotes that are just the opposites, comfort and afflict, in the same quote, which I think the juxtaposition of that is really good. So which brings us to the next question is the challenges. We're taking two leaders, which let's just get it on the table. We have healthy ego. I mean, we are confident. That's because we're the leader. I mean, we've gone here because we have some assurance that we can have impact on people's lives. And Ryan and Russ, you and I, the two of you and I, are in the same ballpark, at least, with how we envision leadership as being an influencer, not a boss. Mm-hmm. And so we bring a whole different freshness to leadership, which I'm not going to include myself in this comment. The older generation has been taught to be the boss, and what I say goes. See, I'm hanging around young people keeps me young. So Russ and I have gray hair, but I've earned mine more than he has because I just made more mistakes. So we look at the challenges, and so we've got people that are leading this thing, and we think, oh, we want to collaborate with this leader leading this thing. So boom, we've got some differences. So speak a little bit. You've approached a lot of organizations in a short period of time about collaborative thinking. And so as you've gone through this, I bet you some things haven't gone like you expect. So how do what kind of challenges arise? I think the question was framed, well, what are the challenges in collaborative relationships?
That's a great point, great question. And you got to kind of know those so you can map out your strategy to overcome those. You know, as you said it right from the beginning, there is a such thing as healthy ego. There is, passion, there's ownership, there's possessiveness, possession, where people feel like they own these things. And that can be a tremendous hurdle to collaboration because you don't want to give up, part of your vision, the direction that you're headed in. And so that's a huge challenge. And so to overcome that, there's a couple things that I've learned to do is that one, you have to go to the individual with a service first mindset, with a serve first mentality. And so that's one of the things that I've learned from the space that we've shared together, guys, is
Russell, are you still there?
I am still here. We kind of lost him for a second.
I think he's frozen up with a signal. He'll free up again in a second, I'm sure. Ryan, if you can hear us, you froze up there.
Uh-oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, the space we share is where we lost you. You went. High tech is really great when it works. When it doesn't work, it's terrible.
It is.
The space we share is where you were going, and then you froze up.
Okay. Yeah. So I was saying the space that we've shared, that's kind of the leading question. How may I serve you? How may I support you? How can I help you get unstuck? And so when we meet another leader that welcomes that alliance, then we're able to move forward. But then there are those, as I said earlier, that kind of hold on to that. So that's the first way to overcome it. But then the only way to progress is to align with someone who's going where you want to go. You have to, and that's kind of the numbers game, if you will, as you said. Yes, talk to several leaders, several organizations, several people that, I felt like there would be some immediate synergy. However, didn't play out that way. And again, I think it's some ego, some unwillingness to let go, unwillingness to have that win-win because the potential or the feeling of potential threat. But then also sometimes you're just not headed in the right direction. And so I think, again, you have to find those partnerships where there's alliance. What's the greatest way to align with somebody? Is to align with somebody who's going where you're going. And I think that helps. That's the best way to overcome that. Otherwise, you kind of start and you can waste a lot of resources trying to pull in one direction when someone else is going in the other. And so one other piece I'll add to that, Hugh, is here's where the character and integrity comes in. And that's a whole nother piece to it. But there definitely has to be a level of character and integrity inside of a collaborative arrangement.
I couldn't agree more. So Russ, I asked Ryan for a character reference. He said, "Yep, he's a character." I just made that up. You're more diplomatic.
I was taught by Dr. Reverend Karen. She said, your goal in life should be to build character, not to be a character everywhere you go.
Do you want to add to that? How do we deal with these problems that arise?
Yeah, the two magic words that Ryan hit on were ownership and alignment. Alignment's something you need to start off with as much as possible. So in approaching people or looking for people, we actually, what I do with my clients, we look for people who are in similar spaces and start having conversations. And sometimes they have stuff on their website or in some of their literature where you can see a little bit about where their thinking leans. And if it looks like something that's compatible with yours, then you start having the conversations to see, well, is this really a fit? And you start from there. And then when it comes to ownership, as you're creating something, you're probably creating something that's brand new for both of you to come in with and build to increase your chances of getting funding by having something unique there. So where the ownership comes in is really kind of the division of labor, as it were. It's really looking at who's going to take responsibility for what. So when you're in this team, you create whatever it is you're creating together, and you'll have a champion for each piece of it. And based on their skills and their desires, and go from there. Every once in a while you'll get somebody that's just kind of a power personality, and they just want to micromanage everything. And to me, micromanagement is fear. Micromanagement is fear-based. You just don't trust other people to get things done the way that you think that you can. And as you both know, good leaders are people that build other leaders. It makes their lives easy. I don't know why a leader wouldn't want to make leaders out of everybody around them. It just makes his or her life so much easier because they're not doing all the work.
Well, Russ, people in our generation, I'm grouping you with me. Sorry, you're not as old as me, but you're closer than Ryan. People in our generation have been taught exactly, we've got to have the right answers. We got to be the boss, and what we say goes. That's what we've inherited. And as boomers, we're moving off the map pretty rapidly. And it's time for millennials to bring in a new, fresh perspective. Everybody's moving off the map, but Hugh Ballou, I'm having so much fun, I'm never quitting. I was at CO Space with Bob Proctor a few years ago, and he was active and vital, and he said, I'm 77, and this was 3 or 4 years ago. He's in his 80s now. He said, I'm 77. People say, Bob, you're 77. When are you going to slow down? He said, I'm 77. I got to speed up. There's a lot more to do. And he's done exactly that. And he's got a lot to do and a lot to share. And I'm for one, I'm glad. And so many people have their most productive times in our senior years. And Ryan, people like you are making a difference. And I'm pleased to have the connection of the generations here, where I can give you the benefit of all my my lifelong scars and what we call learning opportunities. It used to be mistakes, now they're learning opportunities. And you're like a sponge. You'd open up yourself to new ideas, and I commend you for that. And Ryan's headed to another meeting, and we're going to end this before the top of the hour, so he's not going to be late. He was on time for this one. I just didn't know how to had to start broadcast to get him in. Let's go to Ryan, unless you have more wisdom or answers to the questions on the challenges. You did say some things didn't go as you expected. I learned principally from my brother, Dr. David Gruder, who was on this last week, that whenever there's conflict, we all contribute. And so whenever I have something that doesn't go right, I always look back in the mirror and say, I didn't ask these questions.
Yep.
So is that part of your shtick too?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to take responsibility regardless of the result, because unless you take responsibility, you give up a part of the power to correct it, to fix it, to grow, to learn. As long as it's somebody else's fault, you don't give yourself much opportunity to grow. And so, yeah, it's always all right, let me step back and see, and sometimes it's timing. Sometimes it's like you said, the approach was wrong. What could you have done better or different? But yeah, you have to take responsibility and ownership and use those, as you said, learning opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. The only failure is the failure to learn. I believe John Maxwell said that. Before I go to the fourth question, people may want to know where they can go. Is there a link for finding Triangle Entrepreneur Leadership?
Yes, sir, there is. And thank you for asking. That site is www.TELRTP. And that's the initials for Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership Research Triangle Park. So that's TELRTP.com.
Love it. Very unique URL, and we'll put it in the notes for this as well. And on there, will they find information yet about the November 6th conference?
That is developing. I think it's there in the calendar, but we're actually going to be pulling together the marketing for that. It's actually November 2nd. We'll be pulling together the marketing for that hopefully over the next week or so. Yep,
it just sounded like I said 6. It was said 2nd.
Ah, okay. My apologies.
No. You caught me. Now we talk about collaborations. I'm going to be there November 2nd.
Yes.
I may still be there the 6th. So there's people commenting on the post that popped up. Dave Phillipson's up. If you want to comment on these questions, go to Twitter and do the search for the hashtag nonprofit chat. And you'll see the questions, and please use hashtag nonprofit chat in your response. And if it's question 1, question 2, 3, or 4 that we're going to now, just put A1 through 4 and you're answering the questions. Love to have this is a conversation, not a lecture. And Ryan, thanks for rolling with the punches here, and thanks for working at us in your very packed schedule. We talk about collaboration a lot of times, and we go to another group, which is an external collaboration. However, we haven't built a collaborative culture within our organization. Now, one of the things I know firsthand, because I've been there, is that you've tried very hard to work on the inner collaborative thinking. As a matter of fact, I've seen you in a lot of the sessions listening and observing before you weigh in on a conversation, and this is your project. But you're very clear on the objectives, but you let people play in to the articulation, and then you weigh in. I think that's brilliant leadership. You still shape it, but you've built relationships with people that even if you had to use veto power, you could, but you're so careful that you nuance it that you don't have to veto things. You're just moving it. And I don't think any of us would argue with your decisions. However, you're listening with a very in-tune ear. So the last question is about creating, and I didn't do the sentence very well, how do we create internal and external? Oh, no, I did it right. How do internal and external collaborations differ, or do they differ?
Okay, great question. And you're right. And Russell actually kind of alluded to that earlier. He was talking about those internal collaborations. And, I think what I've been blessed with was the, I don't know, ability, I guess, to put people in the room who truly have more experience and giftings in a variety of areas, most of which I am not the expert. And because of the trust, because I believe that these guys, and Hugh, you're definitely included in that number, are individuals of integrity and character. And then, for me, it's truly about, again, as we mentioned earlier, how do we create those win-wins, those win-wins. So for me, I truly want to create an environment, a collaboration where I know, because you guys are so valuable and you're blessing me with your time and talents and resources, that it only makes sense for me to glean from you, but also understand what you need. I guess is what I'm trying to say is I'm listening for what it is you need, because if I know the more I serve you, I know the more that you gain from your time invested in Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership, then it just makes sense for you to put more time here. So, it's kind of like you got two things going on, and if it's whatever it is you want to gain, the one that starts to really fill the bucket up that you want filled the fastest, that's where you start putting more time and energy into. And so what I'm listening for is, how can I truly create a service, a culture, an environment where these individuals can thrive, where these individuals can truly take something away because I value the expertise you bring to the table. I mean, you guys could the hours that you've invested in Triangle, you could take those same hours and go somewhere and put a dollar amount to it, and someone would gladly invest in your knowledge and skill set. And so I recognize the value of those collaborations. And so for that to happen, though, you have to bring valuable collaborations to the table. And so I think that's the big piece from an internal standpoint. And then I think that creates the culture for what happens externally. What's created within becomes what's created without, and then that law of attraction, man, is powerful. So if I'm attracting the right group internally, and we're genuine and creative in what we're able to build, then that's going to continue externally. Now we're going to attract things in alignment with that culture that we've created.
Wow. Your, as I've said to you before, your wisdom far surpasses your years on the earth. We're also doing a collaboration with Dr. Joe White down in Winston-Salem, who's built quite a collaborative community, and Shannon Gronich, who's doing the Business Acceleration Summit in Florida, down in Melbourne, which is happening again in May, just before CEO Space. I think it's 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there. So it's, and we're looking at, and Synervision. So the four of us are talking about how do we build a bigger collaboration between thought leaders who have energy fields of collaborators going. So we're collaborating with other collaborators. And so that we're at the very early stage of that. But I think the upside to that, and the others have asked me, as have you, is let's do it again. So I think it's time for us to get back on the horn. And I think we all are collaborative thinkers, and we really see that there's a synergy on the other side, and we're happy to share with each other. That's the other thing. People that withhold information aren't as good a collaborators as people who share. So I'm gonna swing for a comment from Russ, but I'm gonna come back to you for a closing thought, and I'm gonna give you the setup now so you can be listening to Russell one ear and thinking with the other one. As a collaborative leader who builds collaborative energies and lives for that, what advice would you have to others that are listening to this now or later for creating collaborations of their own? But I'm going to come back for that question. Russ, do you want to weigh in on? You worked inside the Indian reservation for numbers of years, and you had a lot of changes in leaders. So,
yeah, very frequent, very frequent changes.
That happens in the church too. You get a new preacher, and it's got a whole new thing. So there's a different energy with leaders in building the internal. So the challenge is, and what's the difference between, or is there a relevance in the internal collaboration and external collaboration?
Well, yeah, there are some differences because people that actually on the outside that actually pay for the programs may have some different motivations. But it all boils down to finding out what it is that people want and having that alignment, because we vibrate at different frequencies. And some people aren't going to be a good fit. So a lot of what I talk about in win-win-win is actually finding people that are aligned to begin with, to bring into your organization. And as you're building your organization, you want to know what's important to the people that are on your board, that are working for you, that are volunteering for you. What's important? What is it that they want out of that relationship with your nonprofit? And then if you can meet those without going off track for what it is that you're trying to do, that's great. You're finding people whose goals are aligned so that everybody wins. And you do that internally, you got a power team. And so culture is the other word that's really important. You have a culture of high innovation. There are people that just always want to learn. They always want to improve. They always want to get better. And people see that on the outside. So when you've got that type of culture working internally, it's attractive to other people. You're vibrating at the same frequency of people that want to support you by writing checks or maybe volunteering their time. And what is it that they want out of it? Your volunteers have a reason for coming in, or servant leaders is a better term, but they've got things that they want. What are their motivations? What is it that they want to get out of that? So when you're creating things that help people get what they want. It's really sort of that simple. And when you can do that, now, granted, everybody has slightly different wishes, but it's keeping track of what everybody wants. So you get in the dirty little corporate sounding terms like segmentation and that sort of thing. Value. It's all about value, and it's a dirty word in nonprofit circles. But what we're really doing is creating value for people that are getting the services and who are paying for them. And we're creating a valuable experience for people that volunteer and staff with us. So it's all about value.
Well, very well articulated. Ryan, you want to take us out with, from a collaborative leader, what thoughts do you have for others who want to grow that skill or want to be?
Very good. Well, Dennis hit a lot of those key points. Again, at the heart of collaboration, I think, is giving and service. You got to, really stay in tune with the vision, recognize that it's a long-term commitment. And so when you develop that long-term commitment because it's something that you're really committed and sold out to, then now the things that you may have put ahead as important may not be as important as you thought they were when you truly align yourself with that mission. And so I think being open to that flexibility, to that change, to that probably not going to go quite the way you mapped it out, because in collaboration, again, you're operating with that third or more mind. So you probably don't even really have a clue what you're in store for because of what's going to be created because of that collaborative culture. And I love the word Dennis uses is that innovation, creativity, that ingenuity. Again, those things that come out of it that you probably, just had never thought of. And so again, from a collaborative standpoint, it's how can you truly leverage the gifts and talents of those around you? Granted that you put people around you with gifts and talents to get a greater result than you would have, of course, on your own.
Outstanding. Ryan, thank you for sharing with us tonight. This will go up on the Nonprofit Exchange channel on CenterVision on YouTube, and it will go in the Nonprofit Exchange podcast that I believe is only on iTunes Store. I'll check it out. It may be on Stitcher as well, but it ought to be. Thank you so much for sharing your time, Russ, as usual. Thank you for your wisdom. And I'm always glad for you to share. You think of things that I don't think about bringing up. So you add great value to all of these conversations. Blessings, my friends. And Ryan, I know nobody's ever said this. Drive safely.
Yes, I'm like a minute away. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for all that you do, Hugh, for serving that nonprofit community. Tremendous need in that marketplace. So I appreciate the value that you bring. And Russell, such an honor to share this time with you tonight.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again.
Absolutely.
And, tomorrow night, who's responsible for fundraising? So we'll be doing that broadcast at the same time tomorrow night, where we'll talk about a culture of fundraising, which is something that's really important. So
where do they find that?
Well, it's on the Nonprofit Culture Success Group. I emailed the link. Let me
send it to me. I'll put it on this link. I'll put it on this broadcast.
Okay, yeah. I'll put the Zoom conference link up there.
Now I'm past the recording, so this won't be on the podcast because it'll be it'll be too late. But I'll put it on the social media. Ryan, blessings. I want to turn.